What's up, Brother Bauer?
Another day in paradise, brother.
A little this, a little that. Forget about it. You know what I'm talking about?
How you hanging?
Oh, another day, bro. Hey, man, did you watch the show last night with Goss Horny?
Oh, yes, I did. I found it extremely fascinating
Dude,
and really enjoyed, all of the different components. When you start talking about, the volcanoes and earth activities and so forth, and you start tying that into technology, you can go into an entire landscape
mm.
of holes and pits and caverns and find sticks and rocks and things that you go, well, where did that come from?
Well, and here's the thing is that, and I try to preface this a lot when we talk about our immigration crisis. Is that it's not a solo issue. There's spider webs, there's tentacles to all these complex issues that it does get really overwhelming when you start trying to point out all the different ways that it could create this tsunami effect, whether it be immigration or whether it be a volcano erupting. In Mexico, it's just not a volcano erupting and damaging a town. It's going to have a global effect. We're going to have immigration issues. We're going to have economic issues. We're going to have security issues. And there's so many, and it's so hard to try to capitalize on all those things in a quick conversation on all the different areas that should be addressed.
Yeah, and yet in the social fabric, the capitalization of any one aspect of those circumstances and those situations is what people focus on far too much, and they end up weaponizing
Yeah,
individual aspects, which uh, could be very valid.
right.
But the focus is not on the whole, the focus is on the parts. And then you start throwing in the emotional component and the psychological manipulation that goes on with some of that. And it starts getting real messy and it makes it very difficult to have any kind of an open or rational conversation
Did you ever just out of nowhere just look at somebody and want to slap them?
every day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Every
I
day.
just got to get that in right off the bat. This may be a very mature conversation, so I'm trying to get all my ADHD shit out on the table right now. You know what I'm saying? All right,
Yeah,
brother.
half the day I end up looking around, going, "Well, I didn't hit anybody today.
That's a good way, bro.
It's a good day."
Yep. So now, again, we've been having this situation the last couple of weeks. You will not hear the music. I know Dave, something triggers in his brain. I remind him, I'm like, dude, you're not going to hear the music. It goes silent. He's quiet for 8 seconds. Something triggers in his brain, and he feels like he has to say something during the freaking intro, bro. You know what I'm saying? He's like, are we live? Dude, I told you.
Is it time?
Man. All right, brother. So we're going to go live here. Ready? Let's rock and roll. We got 5, 4, 3.
Midnight. Live from an undisclosed location somewhere in North America, Rocci Stucci is in the Situation Room.
Yeah, that's right, folks. Rocci Stucci is in the Situation Room, and it is Friday. Welcome, everybody, to Rocci Stucci's Situation Room, broadcasting from Mojo 50 Radio. Visit the website, mojo50.com. I bid each and every one of you happy. Well, it's depending where you're listening. It could still be late Thursday night, or if you're on the East Coast, it is Friday. If you're in Britain, it's really Friday morning at about 7 o'clock a.m. But anyways, hey, everybody, welcome. Thank you all for being here. Really quick before we continue and then before we bring our guest in, Mr. Bauer, I want to thank everybody. I've been getting a lot of great responses in regards to the show the past couple weeks specifically. And so those of you that are on social media and those of you that are on YouTube, thank you for clicking that bell. Thank you for being here every night. Thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for sharing the program. I'm kind of weird. I always, asking people to do that kind of stuff. I just like things to be organic, but those of you that share, I'm very grateful. And those of you that are here every single night in those chat rooms, you're physically going out of your way to be with me and my guests. And you are truly part of the Meatball Army. And your friendship and your loyalty to the program and to me and to Mojo 50 Radio, it truly, truly means a lot. And I could not express my gratitude to all of you folks. I really couldn't. The interactions throughout the day, the interactions in the chat room. You guys, and Robert Bauer, he can attest to this. We've been in this business for a long time. And it's not the content we talk about that drives us, because we're going to do that regardless. But what makes us turn these microphones on every single day is all of you and the friendships that we obtain with you guys and the conversations. And, we become family. We get to know each other's spouses. We get to know each other's children. And so it's a blessing. It really is to be able to share this time with you guys every single day. Amen, huh, brother? So
Amen.
let me bring Brother Robert Bauer on the program because he's been in this industry for a very long time. He's a voiceover artist. He's done radio of all different kinds. He's been in the industry in one form or the other. And Bauer, I don't know. I'm speaking for myself, but I have a weird feeling that I'm also speaking for you, that it's the people, not the content, which gives us this drive to want to succeed and to want to share these stories. What do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everybody's got their own perspective of the world around them and the thoughts within them. And those are all the result of life experience, information, knowledge nuggets that one picks up along the way. And, if you're just having the conversation with yourself, yeah, it can be fairly interesting. And a lot of times, I say I have conversations with myself all the time because I need expert advice. But being able to get those conversations in your head out into other people's universe and in their sphere and have interaction with that, it's one of the most rewarding parts of being a human, in my experience. Being able to share ideas and thoughts and emotions and perspectives and little pieces of knowledge along the way. And the more that's done, the more enriching the life experience, at least in my experience, is. And you're so right. The people that are involved, that get involved in the chats, get involved with the shows, there's some incredibly intelligent, very insightful people out there. And if you don't give them something or provide a platform in which you can engage those thoughts and expressions and ideas and just the discussions themselves, then you're cheating yourself and you're cheating them.
Right.
So I think you're absolutely correct. You've got some amazing followers that are they're extremely active, very intelligent, they're engaged, and to me, that's what life's about.
Well, it's really cool too, and I said this on a couple previous shows. We go off the beaten path in a lot of things that we talk about, and no matter what the subject is, I guess if somebody asks Rocky, what is your driven content on the show? My answer is everything. It's life, it's politics, it's societies, it's history, it's cultures, it's ideological views. It's why do we believe the things that we believe, and what do we believe that's false compared to what do we not believe, and that's reality. And so it's this constant search that you and I and everybody listening, we're on this journey, and it'll be a forever journey until we take our last breath. We will still be on a journey when we take our last breath. And it's rewarding that, even though there's a lot of things that you and I will not agree on everything. Me and my wife will not agree on everything. In general, society views and political views, we're not going to agree on everything, but there's the people that watch this program are mature enough to be able to have this discussion. And knowing that, hey, you know what? Okay, I don't really agree with what you're saying, but I respect your views because I respect the time you put into researching it for you to come to the conclusion that you have. So that's very cool, brother, and it's encouraging. And it also kind of puts me in check sometimes to where I'm confident in certain views, but then I'll talk to somebody like you or Josh or Dave or, Jeff or whoever, and they say something that I have never considered or maybe researched, and it makes me say, whoa. Okay, let me go back and do the reevaluation of my thoughts in regards to these specific, conversations. Go ahead.
Well, that's what makes your show and what you do unique in the sense that you're not shutting down discourse. You're not saying that there are limits and boundaries within the knowledge set, whatever the topic is, and saying, okay, once you cross outside of these boundaries, we're now into a realm of, I'm not going to buy the rest of what you're saying.
Right.
And that is where discourse in the social fabric, I think, is having a major problem. You've got this, essentially, you've got a battle, and pick a discipline, doesn't matter what it is, or, whatever the subject matter is in the social fabric. You have one side which are considering themselves experts, and you have the other side which are considered by the experts as amateurs. Part of what we're going to talk about today is this thing that I've mentioned on essentially called the informatification. And what that means is it's a verb, it's taking information and doing something with it. And what's happening in the discourse today is you have people who claim subject matter domain expertise and authority. And it doesn't matter, you pick one, climate change, health, immigration, the politics itself. You have people that say, if you're going to talk about this subject, here are the parameters within which acceptable discourse of that discourse can occur, because it's a set of predefined information barriers. Right. And they throw it in the stack, they mix it around, it's kind of like Jenga or Tetris, and they create this narrative that they demand people adhere to. That's not discourse. That is essentially, it's propaganda. It's weaponization of data. And there's way too much of that going on. There's not enough independent research. There's not enough, aside from just doing the independent research, there's not enough accountability for the definitions that people put around their information box. When somebody sets up those parameters and they push it forward, and they say, this is officialdom, this is authoritative, this is what is accepted. And as they move that block down the road and things start falling off, or new information comes in and either colors or redefines the objects that are within that data set, and it starts to fall apart, there's no accountability for, well, you said that this was the right way. This was the established, accepted set of data around this subject. But apparently it wasn't, because all this new data came in and it made your narrative not only look less compelling, but it put a bunch of holes in it.
Right.
And that's where the important part of what you do is incredibly important to not only mending the holy social fabric that's out there, but pushing it forward into a more clear and more concise narrative, something that can be looked at by anybody that decides to open their mind and consider the possibilities. Once you stop considering possibilities, your knowledge set's going to be extremely limited and most likely flawed.
Dude, can I say something in a very non-gay way?
Please.
Thank you. Your voice is very calming, brother. Your voice, I'm sitting here and I'm just like, how you doing? Hey, folks, I just, a little humor there. Hey, I just want to let everybody know that what I'm going to do, because, Bauer, when you come on the program, I get it, and I'm not taking away from anybody else, because everybody enjoys every single guest I have, but I get a lot of compliments on the complexity and the simplicity of how you express your views on a lot of different things. And so what I want to do is I kind of want to make this to happen all the time, these conversations with you and I. And so what I'm going to do on my YouTube channel is I'm going to create a playlist. So if you go to my YouTube page, you'll see a playlist of all the shows with Bauer. And because there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today that extended from our last and previous conversation. And there's going to be something that we're going to talk about in the future that is going to extend from this conversation and past conversations, because this is not a singular subject. This is something that there's many different avenues. It's like a city within a city. And we want to try to cover and dissect this and break this down, both from an academic and a conversational standard and point of view. So make sure you go to the YouTube channel. Again, Bauer, I don't know how long I'm going to be on Facebook. I enjoy bringing the show on Facebook. There's a lot of people that like staying on Facebook. I just don't trust Facebook. That's just where I am with that. So if you are watching on YouTube, I'm not trying to sell you over to my page to get a follow, but if you do enjoy the program, I can't guarantee how long we're going to stay on Facebook. Just make sure you get on over to my YouTube channel as well and follow there, and you can watch all the past shows there as well, and they're all organized and categorized. But before we forget, Tar River Arms, folks, America's first virtual gun store, making it easier, more comfortable than ever to purchase your firearms online, modernizing online firearm sales to accommodate the online generation. We have weekly sales that eliminate shipping and broker fees. You order, you pick up, and no additional fees. Great guns, great prices, and great service. Veteran-owned, veteran-run. Go to traguns.com. traguns.com. Mr. Bauer, let's do this.
Well, let's see if we can. I'm going to try to lay out a narrative that I think is, from a perspective as it relates to today's technology and today's minds, in a way that is simultaneously threatening and comforting.
It's unique.
So yeah, I'm going to try and try to weave this in. So in the last few shows, we talked about this term, informatification.
I'm still kind of tongue twisted about informatification.
Informatification.
Sounds like a Red Hot Chili Pepper song.
It almost does, right? I mean, you could drop some hip hop beats on that.
I'm feeling good about that.
Probably tear it up.
Let's talk about that after the show.
At the core of informatification is information, or what I'm calling informatica. So it's the data within any given knowledge set, and keeping in mind that a knowledge set is simply something that comports and stacks within itself, supplements and makes whatever that subject matter is what it is, something that you can look at and say, well, this is I'm a doctor, I'm a philosopher, I'm a technologist, whatever. There is a set of data within each one of those domains that defines what that definition means, and I'm calling that informatica. Now, one of the things that we're all seeing, and we've talked a little bit about this on a previous show, is this technology that is upon us. There is a proliferation, a saturation, a maturation in some ways of the technology that we use today. And in order to put it into a context, I'm going to draw some correlations for information, or the informatica, throughout history up to today. The subtitle of this is Transformative Disruption.
Okay.
And that's where the dichotomy of both being a positive and potentially a negative simultaneous event is occurring. So let's talk about information just from a historical perspective. You go all the way back thousands of years in various different cultures around the world. You have different ways in which information of the time, the science, the knowledge of the time, was identified, collected, and determined to be, what it is that was governing a society, that was defining a culture, that was defining the intelligences of how to hunt and how to build and how to draw and how to do different things. That's always been a part of the human condition. That's a part of who we are.
Survival,
We have these innate intelligences that over time develop and mature and become better. In some cases they deteriorate.
Right.
But nonetheless, there's an information set. So in these ancient cultures, there was papyrus and stone, and they come up with some type of system with which to communicate information, and use some hieroglyphs or cuneiform, and then it eventually evolved into various sets of writing, and the writings expressed the philosophies and the thoughts and the ideas of the time. Move forward a few thousand years, you get to the Gutenberg press. Now all of a sudden you've got what you didn't have in the past. You either had to have papyrus or some goat skins or stones, and those ideas had to be written down, and then that's all you had was that one copy. Gutenberg comes along and says, hey, now we can get a whole bunch of copies. All of a sudden, the disbursement of information is now becoming more widely available. If you didn't have that stone or that papyrus in your library, you didn't know about that information unless it was told to you by some story, somebody was telling you the story. Well, now all of a sudden, you've got books, and Chinese were doing this as well. But now this informatica started to be able to be replicated. And that replication process gave people the ability to find out things that they wouldn't have found out otherwise. So you started to have this explosion of information. Of course, you had to be literate. People had to learn how to read and write when they found or were presented with this information. But even though there was, a lot of that was confined by the theological authorities of any given time or place, there was still the ability for people to try to figure it out themselves. Then you move into the last 150 or so years. You get the telegraph. You get the ability to start sending this information electronically. All of a sudden, there's dots and dashes and Morse code and so forth, and people are able to communicate without having that written Gutenberg book or the stone or the papyrus set of information, and communicate that over long distances. Then we get into the last 100 years. Let's go back around 1940s. 1947, 48, all of a sudden this whole idea of transistors comes in, and we can get into a whole nother rabbit hole on where did that technology come from, where was that knowledge, how did it originate, but most importantly, what did it do? Well, it essentially took the telegraph and the dots and dashes that were going over copper wires with, little points and so forth, and it moved it onto this silica chip. And now all of a sudden you had information confined in this little tiny box that could contain a whole bunch of information. So the computers started to become the Informatica dissemination tool of choice and going forward. Now let's fast forward into the 1980s. In the 1980s, there was some technology disruption that was so profound that people at the time, like myself, we saw it and we didn't think about it in the sense of it being a technology disruption. It was a life enabler. And I'll give you some examples. The Walkman. When the Walkman came around, all of a sudden my record collection that I would have to have, hit the original playlist, the 45s with the drop, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, that was the original playlist, right? Your mixtape. Well, the Walkman comes along. Now you got this cassette tape. You've got this, magnetic piece of plastic with oxide on it, and you're able to put stuff in this little tiny box. So again, going down to miniaturization of information. Well, the power of the Walkman is, providing music.
Dude, I used to tie my boombox on the handlebars of my bike, and I used to roll the neighborhood, man, and I used to think I was hardcore, bro.
And think about what that meant transformatively to you, right? To everybody. Now, all of a sudden, you've got your music with you. You can take it, you can strap it on your belt, you can put it on the earphones, and you're walking down the road, and, whether you got the boombox on your shoulder or you got the Walkman on your hip, your entire, that time that you would spend listening to music at home is now portable. Completely transformative and disruptive. You also, during that time, had VHS and Betamax. It used to be there was an appointed time to sit and watch a show. Everybody had to gather around the campfire of the television at the appointed time if you wanted to see it. Well, now you have not only recorded music that you can make your own playlist, you've also got recorded audio-visual experiences with these shows. Completely transformative and very disruptive. In fact, back then, the major broadcasters and the content owners raised hell, tried to get both on the Walkman and on the VHS. They tried to introduce legislation and say, you people can't do this. You're violating our copyright ownership. Right? There was a whole bunch of hearings and amazing. I encourage you to look at the CNN did a great series on the decades of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I highly encourage everybody to take a look at that. They did actually a pretty good job with it. And then the other thing that happened during the 80s, it was to me, the final transformation of disruption, which has spawned everything else we see today, is the computer, the personal computer.
When you say transformation of disruption, break that down a little bit in what you truly mean by that.
So transformative disruption means when you first think about the term transformative, that means something is totally changed. There's a transformation that has occurred. So these technologies I'm talking about, the Walkman, the VHS, computer, etc., those were transformative technologies. They took what was something that people enjoyed and did and consumed and made them mobile, portable, and accessible. Where prior to that, you had, I remember my first, what was it, the Sherwood audio system. Had the great big amplifier and all the EQ and, the great big speakers. And I mean, I sat down in that and I was absorbed, but the only place I could enjoy it was sitting there where it was. I couldn't take it with me.
Right.
So that's a transformation of being able to have the Informatica available to you in a mobile way. The disruption is the part where not that transformation has disrupted the prior status quo. So now you can have that through that transformation, it's disrupted the way that I was doing things before. Now, the disruption in itself can be even more profound, and we'll get into that here in a second. We get into the second half. I'm going to show some information, some videos about what is going on now and what's in front of us. And that's where I think this transformative disruption is about to take on an entirely new level of discourse and import to our lives that we are currently trying to find our way through.
So before, we're just coming down on time here. So before we really jump into this rabbit hole, with just a couple minutes left, do you think, for one, I didn't know there was lawsuits in regards to the Walkmans and whatever it may be, but do you think that this world even had a clue what we were about to face
simple.
when we went
Clothing,
through this
apparel,
new paradigm
and
of
accessories.
electronics and mobile devices that we are experiencing even to this day?
I think there might have been some inklings of it by people like, Berners-Lee, who invented the internet itself, or at least the construct
Sure.
of the internet. I think that, in fact, he just penned an article a month or two ago about how he didn't see some of what was coming. And now that he sees what has come, he's got some pretty specific warnings and things that people should be thinking about going forward. And, it goes back to some of the things that we talked about as far as, are there people running things? I think that there are people that have influence. I think it's essentially, it's like a mafia family at the top. They compete with one another. They don't get along all the time, but they all kind of have hands in different parts of the pie.
Right.
But I think that a lot of what they may have thought that they were unleashing has gotten away from them in some ways, and they definitely didn't see that. So I think that there's a combination. There's some foretelling that appears to be obvious,
Clothing,
and I think that
apparel.
there's some ramifications and things that happen that are not so obvious, and we're seeing them happen in front of our eyes now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, every time you see Bauer's mug on this program, I strongly urge you to make sure you have that thinking cap on, because we're going beyond the veils. We're going beyond the surface and trying to understand the realities that we walk here every single day. But you're listening to me, the emotional meatball, the clown punisher, Rocci freaking Stucci, the situation right here on Mojo 50 Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the bottom of the hour break. When we come over, we're jumping in, folks. So be prepared. Make sure you got those drinks. Make sure you got that Kool-Aid, because there's a lot to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. Segment number 2, right around the corner. Stand by. And we are out, my brother.
So was that a good enough setup?
Yeah, it was a good setup. You already triggered my brain. I already got some notes here. Just the whole conversation of weaponization of data, dude. There's so many different things that sparked to my brain that just that conversation, the weaponization of data, is something that we should do on a weekend, and just not care about time limits and commercials, and light up a frickin' cigar and say, brothers, let's talk.
I tell you what, the amount of what is going on is deep and it's wide.
Very
and
much.
Navigating through it is one of the most difficult things to do. So what I'm trying to do with at least this particular initial discussion is try to set some markers, some points and that one can look at in the landscape and go, I've encountered new data, new information. What marker does it relate to, or is it even its own new marker, right? But being able to at least have some level of what I call the markers within the landscape of awareness is highly important. And then being able to individually analyze and try to understand those markers within the context of the landscape is extremely important. I'm a musician and a technologist, so I've got ADD on both sides of my brain, right? I've got the emotional part, I've got the logical data part, and those two are bumping into each other, and the marbles in my mind all the time. And as I rattle them around, there'll be a nugget notice that'll show up. I'll go,
Right.
what the hell was that?
The hell was that?
I need to stop and look at that and figure out where that sumbitch fits.
Some bitch. Dude, it's Friday, brother. It's Friday, and it's going to be 70 freaking degrees this weekend.
Up in your place?
Yes, sir.
God damn.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
nice.
about, dude. That's what I'm freaking talking about. Let the allergies begin, man.
Well, I still have some snow out here, but we're supposed to be 65 and sunny this weekend. And
dude, you're in the mountains, man. You're in the freaking mountains.
And God love the mountains. I mean, when whoever made whatever between the ocean and the mountains, they had it going on.
They sure did. Okay, we're ready to roll, brother.
All right.
5, 4, 3. Oh, yes, folks, just like Miss Audrey just put in that chat room, that baseline, though. Welcome back to the second segment of the Rocci Stucci Show right here, Mojo 50 Radio, broadcasting from an undisclosed location. And yes, folks, it is Friday. It is going to be 70 frickin' degrees this weekend. And we love the hell out of each and every one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, you ever bloat after eating, get abdominal distension, tightness, feel tired or heavy after eating a meal, or have unpredictable bathroom habits? Well, we have the answer for you. It's called Atrantil. All you need to do, folks, if you want to get a 90-capsule box, which is normally $40, when you buy 3 boxes with our coupon code, you get a 3-month supply of bloating and digestive relief for only $99. That's $20 savings for a 3-month supply. Just go to lovemytummy.com and use the code word Mojo. And we also picked up cat coolers. I will do a full read on that on Sunday night. Tell everybody how they can get a cooler that will keep the ice cold for a week straight. But that'll be for cat coolers. And we appreciate all the sponsors to the program. We appreciate all the sponsors to the network. And yeah, man, dude. And by the way, folks, if you're really into politically driven, current event driven talk radio, you have to visit the website, Mojo 50 Radio. We have some amazing shows, man. We got Brad Staggs on in the morning for the Morning Mojo. We got the Conservative Cartel with my brother at arms, Mr. Matt Locke. We got Unleashed with Jeremy Hansen. Every time I listen to Jeremy Hansen, I just want to start smashing people in the face. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is what I just urged. Just go to mojo50.com, look at the lineup, download the iHeartRadio app. You can listen to the stream 24 hours a day. You can listen to this program 5 nights a week. We start at 12 o'clock midnight Eastern, 11 o'clock Central, starting on Sunday night. And you can also listen on Roku TV. You can listen on TalkStream Live app by searching for the Mojo 50 icon. You can listen on Spreaker and all the other available live networks that we are on, as well as the podcast. Now, my main podcast home is ebntalkradio.podbean.com, but you can also listen through Mojo 50's Spreaker app for the past shows, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, all the podcast platforms. Just search Rocci Stucci, ROCCI, STUCCI, and everything will pop up, even all my bad stuff. But Mr. Bauer, we got Mr. Bauer on the program. And again, I'm going to preface this again. The conversations that I'm having with Mr. Bauer is not a single show conversation. It's going to be a multiple show thing. So what I'm going to do on my YouTube channel is I'm going to create a playlist of all the shows I do with Mr. Bauer. And I always strongly suggest people to go all the way back to the very first one and then follow the shows in progression, because of the fact is that we are going in a direction here. It's going to challenge your brain. It's going to make you think. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to escape from the outer layer of that onion, and we're trying to dig a few layers into that onion to try to really understand that the world we live, the world that we breathe, the world that we walk, understanding information, the source of information, the matrices of information, and somehow figuring out a way to stick our fingers in the dikes of humanity. So, Mr. Robert Bauer, the microphone is yours, my brother. I see that giggle, dude. I know where your mind went when I said that, bro. I know where I know what's up, bro.
I'm trying to keep my hands in my pocket here. So let's see if I can try to wrap this first segment up into the getting to where I think we're going, because the past is not always a prologue to the future, but sometimes there's a lot of indicators. There's predictive linguistics and analytics that one can see if one looks open-mindedly at the data that's available. So we talked about how the history of the Informatica, which is the substance of information, it's all the different components, has gone from having been on stones and goat skins and so forth, through Gutenberg disseminating through the printing press, the computer being essentially an electric conglomeration of all that data, being able to make it available to people on a wide basis. Then you had disruptive technologies in the music and the video aspects and computing itself within the 80s. In the 90s, we started to get the internet, which connected all these devices, what's collectively known as IoT, or the Internet of Things today, which we'll talk about. And then you had these smart devices, these phones, these what I call a uniblab. You have communication now in the use of a disruptive, transformative technology in the sense of these phones, right? You get these computing devices that are just like, well, what else do I need? I can talk, I can see, I can communicate, I can look up, I can research, I can validate, I can debunk, I can do whatever it is that I need to do with an information set that is now available in my pocket. So all of these technologies were in and of themselves both transformative and disruptive. So now we're looking at today, and there is an amazing, depending on which part of the quote unquote conspiracy realms you'd like to go. But nonetheless, we have all of these things now that are all connected to this web of Informatica, right? It's all the way down to the point where your refrigerator will tell you you're out of milk.
Right.
And it will remind you while you're at the store that, hey, don't forget the diapers and the milk, right? You have notifications on social media. You have different pieces of information that, depending on how they're set up, they will notify you when they've been updated. You have cars that are driving themselves.
Scary.
You have all of these technologies that are coming together in a way in which it's transformative, but it's also disruptive. I don't know about you, and I can see this down the road, maybe 20 to 50 years down the road. I'm not getting in any car that I'm giving the control over to the technology.
I hear you, brother. Happen. I'm with you 1,000%. Right?
Just not going to happen.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily that I don't distrust the technology. I distrust the people. I don't have enough confidence, and let's say it that way, of the people that are doing the programming and implementing the technology. Now, part of my background, I've been in technology for 35 years. I have built communication devices and software and so forth for a wide variety of different industries. So in that sense, I've been on the engineering side of creating some of these things.
So you know firsthand that everything is not fail-proof.
Oh, it never is.
Never.
You gotta realize that everything is what's that famous saying? Whenever somebody is concerned about whether man has made something that's fail-proof or not, it's like, well, you got to remember that amateurs built the Ark and professionals built the Titanic.
Amen, bro. Yep.
So my point there is that the input is the only thing that's going to make a difference as to whether there's something is as reliable as it should be. So if you're writing software, if you're building hardware, if you're combining the two, there's going to be flaws. It doesn't matter. You're implying and employing human intellect to whatever it is that you're trying to do. And we all know that is infinitely is not failure proof. It's infinitely going to be something that you're going to say, well, at some point stuff's going to fall over.
Right.
So to the point about this whole transformative, disruptive nature of Informatica as it relates to technology today, what I'd like to do is share a short 1-minute video that will set the tone for what I think we're about to see. And there will be not only current rabbit holes, but there will be new caverns that will be dug out as a result of what we're about to see here.
All right, brother. I'm on your cue here, Bauer.
All right, so you tell me if the sound and the video is good, and if not, we'll just clip it and try to put it in another time. And here we go.
All right.
You see the video there?
Yep. Yep.
Imagine the smart city of the future, a city made smarter by Spectrum, connecting millions of people and billions of devices. At Spectrum, we see digitally connected governments creating engaged communities, dynamic traffic management, reducing commute times, smart lighting, improving energy efficiency, and intelligent water management supporting conservation efforts. The smart city of the future is already being built today, and Spectrum's infrastructure is its foundation. With a fiber-powered network across the country, delivering 100 gigabit per second symmetrical speeds for businesses, the largest LTE cellular network, a nationwide network of Wi-Fi hotspots, and soon, 5G wireless technology. Spectrum is helping cities today become smart cities of the future. Visit SpectrumSmartCities.com to learn more. Spectrum, think forward.
Dude, we can go down so many freaking rabbit holes right now on this, dude. I'm telling you right now, you got me triggered. You do. You got me triggered, brother. Okay, so yesterday, before you continue, you watched the program with me and Dave. And,
Yes,
so we talk about technology, we talk about information, and we, a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's both. It's one or the other. People like convenience. People like convenience. And we're in a new age where we're starting to experience these new conveniences, but we're also in this age where I kind of feel like we're these test lab rats, or we're these guinea pigs, because we really don't know the ramifications right now of some of the newer technologies that they're putting in our cities. For instance, yesterday we talked about 5G. It sounds marvelous. It sounds fantastic. Wow, what a convenience, man. Everything's going to be so much better with 5G. But we're also hearing about these horrific stories about these children at schools that are getting cancer from these 5G towers with different frequencies or EMF or radiation or whatever it may be. So are we going to, as we progress or evolve, air quotes, as a society, how is this helping us? Or the question is, how is this hurting the human being? Because it's making us use our brains less.
Yes, and I think that there's a couple of different aspects of this. One, from the enablement perspective, as it relates to the technology of 5G, having these 100 plus gigabit speeds, obviously that's enabling exactly what they just showed on this video. I mean, in order to have that kind of connectivity, and I find it both frightening and comforting at the same time. Another one of those things where you're holding two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time, which is extremely valuable skill set. But when they start off in that video and they talk about, this connected government, right? And having all of the municipal facilities all connected into this, and I think, well, hell, that would sure cut a lot of red tape. It would clean up, at least expose a lot of the inefficiencies and things that need to be looked at. And what we called back in the late 80s, early 90s in my tech career, there was this whole thing about what was called business process reengineering. And the idea was that there was all these ways in which supply chain and inventory and so forth were managed in models of business that were just needed to be improved. They were lacking in efficiencies and logic and additional information that would make them much more efficient. Well, that's what the first thing I saw in this video is like, well, yeah, the government's about the most inefficient thing that we've got on the planet. It doesn't matter what government you look at. It doesn't matter what the form or the construct of the ideology behind that government is. The majority of it is a bureaucrat-filled sense of nonsense. That if government was run like a business, it would be a hell of a lot more efficient. Because in business, you've got accountability, you've got plans, you've got regular reviews and things that people look at to say, yeah, this isn't working, we need to change something.
Right.
That doesn't happen in government.
No, they're too precious.
Right. But as it relates to the technology, so you got the aspect of the enablement, which the 5G technology in this case provides much greater bandwidth. It's all about bandwidth. So it's about having a highway in which the Informatica can be exchanged much more voluminously as well as more efficiently. On the other side of it, you have the actual technology itself that enables it, which is the wireless frequency bands. So in order to get that enablement, you're using microwave bands that have, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the origin of 5G was in medical systems. And the scanning capability and the frequency range of 5G is in the microwave range. And that those frequencies have been proven over and over again. And we can get into, when we get into 5G and some of that, we'll do a show that we can dive deep into it and see how, what is the real data? Because right now, a lot of people don't realize this. FCC has put in laws that prevent municipalities from protesting or doing anything about the implementation.
What?
Yeah, I think it's Reg 183. We'll pull it up and we'll get into this. But this just happened.
So basically, what you're saying is that they're going to implement 5G. You shut your mouth because your opinion don't matter. So shut up, don't protest it.
Well, it's not only that your opinion doesn't matter, you can't do anything legally about it.
Oh, I don't like that at all, bro.
Yeah, we'll dive deep into that. And there, in fact, I think it was Belgium just this week. There was a huge protest, and they have now stopped their 5G implementation.
They have. I saw that, and it makes me want to protest because they're telling me that my voice is invalid in this.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing that the FCC has gotten away with.
Kind of like the vaccine situation. You're going to get vaccines. You're going to shut your mouth. Your opinions on whether you support vaccines or not is invalid. And if you don't have vaccines, you're going to be an imbecile to society.
So I think, that's a great example, and it really supports the point I'm trying to make of this transformative disruption, okay? There are things going on that are simultaneously awesome and scary at the same time, right? And 5G fits into that.
Yep.
So the thing I want to wrap up with here on this, at least at the high level, and these are things that I think people need to be aware of. They need to put a marker in their landscape of awareness to keep an eye on it. As we've had this enablement of all of this digital informatica that comes to us now in forms of audio and video and data and scanning and recording and tracking and GPS and all these different things that have come together essentially once again in our mobile uniblabs, there are aspects of this transformation that we're about to see that are extremely important on levels that I don't think people fully appreciate yet. And I'm going to we'll do a separate show on this. And that is in what is known as crypto assets or cryptocurrency.
Yep.
Okay. And the underlying technology of that model, which is known as blockchain. And blockchain is a significant, transformative, disruptive component to the way that Informatica is not only made available, but tracked. Because the whole idea about all of this technology is in order to have access to the enablement of whatever the hell it is, smart device, self-driving cars, your alarm for that matter. In order to have that, you have to have some type of location and identification of the data itself and your relationship to it.
So can I just intervene really quick, brother?
Yeah.
The part that concerns me the most, it seems like a lot of these people that are creating these conveniences and creating these sources of information seem to be in a lot of different ways the ones that are abusing or manipulating the same luxury that could really benefit us, that are kind of turning it into kind of a nightmare. Let me give you an example. Media, mainstream media, news sources. News has been around since the printing press. And I believe at one time, back when dudes were still riding horses, the printing presses, I don't think were conspiratorial as they are now. I believe that there were small town papers supplying accurate information. But now we've learned to use that source of information as a tool to weaponize the thought process of the people digesting that information.
I totally agree. And but here's the thing, again, going back to the point of as the technology evolves
Mhm.
and it advances to having more ubiquity, having the ability to get access to the information, see the information, digest the information, regurgitate it in a way that you have interpreted whatever that information is. That's now freely available to everyone. So I think that while there may be some nefarious intentions behind those who have either created and or developed and deployed the data, going back to the point about it's escaped those that originally came out with it, I think that we're to a point where the only way that the the most effective way to shut down any of the exchange of the information is essentially an EMP.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The technology has enabled everyone to be able to create their own platform, their own source, their own wherever the data is that it resides. I can create my own website. I can create my own database. I can create my own expression of that information and put it out to whoever I want. Will I get targeted by people who might want to shut it down and hack it? Sure. I mean, but that's happening to everybody, including those at the top as well as those at the bottom.
Right.
But the ubiquity of the technology, I think, has escaped that. The critical thing is how smart people can avoid being targeted and shut down by using the technology for themselves and to be able to disseminate it, just like your show, right? You're creating your own content and you're distributing that. Right. You can be targeted, but that doesn't mean that you're going to go away.
Right.
So being able to have a sense of where the good markers within your landscape of awareness of Informatica, what's out there, is the critical component of being able to not only survive the tsunami of transformative disruption that we have not only seen, but we're about to see. That is what's critical. And you've got to have free thinking and an open mind in order to not only see it coming, but navigate it when it washes over you. Because I turn my phone on and stuff comes in there and I'm like, I don't even know where that came from or what they're talking about. But there are certain characteristics of the data on the incoming side that are pretty easy to tell. And you can decide, that's where your first filter is. Am I going to pay any attention to that or not?
Right. So how do you think the humans will evolve with the evolvement of new sources of information? Because we're having a hard time with it right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How do you think the human beings will we keep up with this race?
Well, that gets into the whole aspect and topic of transhumanism.
Mm-hmm.
You get into Ray Kurzweil and, some of the people that are talking about the blending of technology and biology and, getting the best out of the human experience and upgrading it, if you will. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of experiments and things that are going on with that, which is a whole nother rabbit hole that one can get down into. I think at the end of the day, and this kind of ties back, and maybe we can wrap up this segment with this whole idea of this transformative disruptive technology is coming in the forms of things like I mentioned, the Internet of Things, IoT, which is essentially all the connectivity that we saw in that video. You also have big data, which is essentially just mountains of Informatica and the mining of that, the data mining that goes in it. You have artificial intelligence, which is being employed in order to enable these smart tools and toys and things so that they can actually function. I have an opinion about the term artificial intelligence, which is it doesn't make any sense because in order for anything to have intelligence, there must be some type of sentience to it, consciousness. And I don't think that we'll be able to transform or transmute consciousness into technology. I think we can mimic it in some ways. But I think that a lot of the dangers that we're going to see going forward are going to come from this idea of artificial intelligence and creating something under the term intelligence.
Right. And my biggest fear, Bauer, is that as we progress with technology, we're starting to see some things that personally bother me in regards to people trying to play God.
Yeah, well, and that all that depends on what your definition of God is, right?
Right. Right.
You know, which invisible person in the sky do you follow, and what did they tell you are the constructs of that belief system?
I think it's the fear of the unknown because we don't really know what our limits are. So when we say playing God, we talk about weather modification, we talk about artificial intelligence, and when you talk about trying to implement a conscience in an AI, the chances are is there's going to be somebody out there, if not already, that's going to try to actually do something like that and twist the terminology to make people think that this computer actually has a conscience. I guess it's overwhelming because as we advance, we only know what we know, and we're starting to see this new technology that is overwhelming. And I'm just afraid that we may overstep our boundaries that could create these horrific, horrific consequences because we thought we were trying to make things better and actually made them worse, and it's irreversible.
Well, I think then that's only going to happen if people decide not to pay attention.
And a lot of
Right.
people don't pay attention to shit now, bro.
Well, there's a tsunami of information that makes it very difficult
It
to pay
sure
attention
is,
to any
man.
one thing. And
That's
so
right.
you've got to get to a point where
They know the songs
you've
to
got to
sing.
look at what are the most critical, fundamental things to my minute-to-minute, day-to-day existence, and then set up information filters and filters of Informatica that enable you to get the information you need and not pay attention to the stuff that you don't. I think the first thing that people really need to understand is to be able to identify when something's been weaponized. Because if there is any weaponization of information, that's your first flag.
Right.
Information should not be weaponized. Thought should not be weaponized. Ideas, discourse should not be weaponized. It should not be censored. It should not be relegated into realms of pseudo this and pseudo that. Mm-hmm. It needs to be something where the individual can make up their own minds and opinions about the data that's been presented to them and the way that they've looked at it, regardless of how rational it may seem or how irrational it may seem. Mm-hmm. The irrational stuff is going to float to the surface by itself.
Right.
So you'll see turds of data floating around that you go, okay, well, I'm not going to swim over there.
Right.
But over here's some nice blue, cool water. And there's some really interesting things that I want to go swim around and enjoy that coolness. And I think that that's one of the most important things that I hope we can explore to help people sort that out, because the information tsunami is not going to get smaller. It's going to keep getting bigger.
It is, and it's driving people off the planet because we don't know what's real anymore. We don't know what's false information. We don't know what's propaganda. We don't know what's weaponized, and we don't know what's fact anymore because we get so inundated with so many different theories and so many different thoughts. And a lot of these topics that I'm personally referring to are modern day current societal events that are literally twisting our society as we know it. And I think we've lost our identity in this country presently, and I hope that we retain it again sometime soon. But anyways,
did you say driving people off planet as in the secret space program?
That could be, dude, there's a whole nother freaking show. I wanted to do a show on the space program, dude, for weeks, man. We got to do that next week. Let's do a show next week on the space program.
I'm in.
Dude, seriously.
Have people
Bauer,
just jumping on it.
We got about a minute left. Let everybody know, how can they contact Robert Bauer? How can they message you? How can they purchase your music? How can they get voiceover work? Tell us, Robert Bauer.
All right, I've got Facebook, obviously Robert Bauer there. I have a page up there called News Tracks, which has a conglomeration of different pieces of information that I find I think is relevant. You decide. I report, you decide. On the music side, there's intuitivesound.com, INTUITIVE sound.com, which is a collection of music and sound that I've done over the years. And in a week or two, I'm going to be launching the Nexus Nextcast, which will be at bauer.media, which is also where you can find the voiceover work that I've been doing and continue to enjoy and love doing. But all those are the ways in which you can find the stuff that I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Bauer, brother, we love the hell out of you. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for being here. Mojo 50, Rocci Stucci Situation Room. Until Sunday night, make sure you're here 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Central. May God bless you. May God bless the United States. And rule number one, folks, don't take shit from anybody. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is my friend. Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. Jesus is a friend of mine. Jesus is
how to save my soul. He taught me how to praise my God and still play rock and roll. The music may sound different, but the message is the same. It's just an instrument to praise his name.